Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Dustin Jackson.
So Dustin, we have known that Diddy Kong would only be receiving a very light tweak in appearance compared to what Donkey Kong is currently going through as we enter the Switch 2 era. Now, this is all just based previously on merchandise, where he has already appeared in illustrated form alongside the new look Donkey Kong. And by the way, for all of our thoughts on the new look of Donkey Kong, I refer you to episode 1302 of the Kongversation. We need to talk about Donkey Kong's new design.
Thank you.
Go listen to that. Go listen to that if you haven't. Now, that was before Donkey Kong Bananza was announced. That was just going off of the little snippet we saw in Mario Kart World's teaser in the initial Switch 2 preview. It was based on the new artwork that had been rolling out around that week. And of course, Donkey Kong, we've gone through it. We've gone through all the ways it differs from the Kev Bayless 1994 Donkey Kong. Now, there's still a lot of that in Donkey Kong's design. It's not completely absent like a lot of people, I think, are really trying to push that narrative. Some people are just trying to say it's the Donkey Kong 94 or Donkey Kong Game Boy Donkey Kong design, but it's really not. It's its own thing. It's its own evolution of the Donkey Kong Country DK. It just reincorporates some of those original Miyamoto flourishes.
Right. It's a nice little in-between that takes elements of both, mixes them together, and makes it its own thing.
And, I talked about it when we did our conversation where, even though it's never going to be my favorite Donkey Kong design, seeing him in motion with this design, seeing him in action in Donkey Kong Bananza's trailer, and especially the game footage that we've seen of people actually playing it, I have really warmed up to it, because it's one thing to see it in stills or just in very blurry background shots. It's another thing to see him be Donkey Kong, doing Donkey Kong things with this new look, and you're like, oh yeah, that's our guy. He's still in there.
Love it. I am so on board with this refresh of Donkey Kong. I don't know if it'll be my favorite. I could see this new one being my favorite, even though it's not the one I grew up with, just because what it does appeals to me so much.
It's very appealing. And like I said, I think nostalgia is always just going to be pulling me back in the old direction. That's always what I'll prefer. But I will still go into this with an open mind. And I said it was like making a deal with the devil, basically, where if we can get reliably released Donkey Kong games, and all of it takes is Donkey Kong's brand being pulled back into Nintendo EPD, developed internally, and if they feel like they have to change the design to please the Miyamoto gods, then pour that blood on the altar, please, because I would much rather be spending time with this Donkey Kong makeover for the rest of my days on Earth than sitting around waiting for a new Donkey Kong game with the old design and getting one maybe every 15 years. That's just not tenable. So
I feel like it's a good deal.
Yeah, that's the way I'm going into it. That's the way I'm framing it. Mr. Positivity, right? But Diddy Kong. The notion of a Diddy Kong redesign has been bandied about, and we didn't even realize initially that Diddy's design had been tweaked on the new merchandise, and this is just the 2D illustrations, so it's kind of hard to parse what we're seeing. We saw the new Donkey Kong design last autumn in the first merchandise, but we didn't know what we were looking at because it just looked like a slightly exaggerated version of the old design. So with the Diddy Kong design, what people started pointing out, and this is especially in light of Donkey Kong Bananza's trailer and seeing those monkey miners, what people started pointing out was it looks like Diddy Kong has the slightest bit of a brow above his eyes. And he's like, yeah, I can kind of see that. It's kind of there. Okay, so maybe Diddy will have a brow now, not as discernible as Donkey Kong or any of the Gorilla Kongs, but a light brow, maybe covered in fur a little bit, around his eyes to give it some more definition. Okay, I could see that. I would be fine with that if that's all you're going to touch. Because the thing is, Dustin, I've seen Donkey Kong go through some pretty hideous and hilarious design tweaks for the last 23 years.
For sure.
I've seen them try to make that design work with some of the Miyamoto preferences, like the giant glaring teeth that just don't fit that guy's skull at all. And so I've had to wince. I've had to grimace at some of the ways Donkey Kong has looked in various games throughout the years, to the point where I think the number of ugly appearances outnumber the amount of times he's looked good.
I think so.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Mario Kart is one of the worst culprits behind this as well, which sucks because that's how most people get exposed to Donkey Kong.
Right, and it sucks since everything else about that game is great. Like, everything looks great in that game except for the character I want to play as.
I'm not even just talking about 8. I'm talking about Mario Kart DS. I think the only time Donkey Kong has looked good in a Mario Kart game, arguably Mario Kart 64 and Super Circuit. I know people have problems with the art direction, going with like the sprite-based characters in a mostly polygonal world, but I like the way he looks there. 3D model provided by Rare UK and everything. And I honestly like the way he looks in Double Dash. I think he looks great in Double Dash.
I was about to say Double Dash, yeah. I think that game, like, it has a style to it that I enjoy.
Yes. Everything's shiny.
Yeah.
It's like Donkey Kong had been slathered in baby oil.
Everything's shiny, cartoony, and bulbous.
Just greased up.
Yeah.
And Mario Kart Wii, of course, just was an evolution of that. If even that. But then Mario Kart DS looked atrocious. I guess 7 looked okay. Retro Studios backed them up there. And then Mario Kart 8, yeah, he was a terrible design. He looks fine from the back, thankfully, but Donkey Kong, I was like, whatever, I'll roll with the punches. Diddy Kong, however, he has gone through design tweaks over the years, absolutely. Even under the auspices of Rare, they tweaked him quite a bit. But I feel like Diddy's always maintained a baseline consistency, more or less. They've occasionally tried to give him the big teeth, and then they were like, that looks dumb, let's take the big teeth away. But I think because he wasn't considered a Nintendo-born design, I think they were a little bit more hands-off in like not changing him too much. And that's great because Diddy Kong, as you know, Dustin, as most of our listeners are aware, Diddy Kong is my favorite video game character. I love Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong is just the character I relate with the most. I've said Diddy Kong is an anxious millennial just because when I played Donkey Kong Country for the first time, I was the same age that Diddy was roughly supposed to be. So I just saw a lot of myself, this guy who suffered from anxiety, bipolar too, but you're a kid, you don't know any of that. So you're just like, why am I just feeling petrified every morning before I go to school? And then Diddy's, just cowering in the face of everything in DKC, but he musters up, he gets out there, he gets the job done. There's something admirable I found about Diddy Kong. And I grew up with him. I grew up with Diddy, alongside of him. And I'll always love Diddy. So the thought of drastically changing Diddy kind of puts me in my back heels a little bit. And again, I view it a little bit like the Faustian bargain. Well, if it means we get Diddy in more games, I guess a little tweak here or there won't kill me.
Don't say that yet. It could kill you any day.
That's true. That's true. He killed a whole island full of Kremlins, and he wasn't planning on doing that.
Yeah, and just think, like, he knew who the Kremlins were. Do you think he would come up to you and, like, not even hesitate to smack you upside the head or trip you on your little walk?
I mean, he and I, we've hung out. My me has raced alongside of him. We've partnered up from time to time. We're friends.
That's true. He might remember you.
But yeah, I looked at the brow and I was like, okay, they're not changing Diddy much. Case closed, right? And I think I was also feeling pretty confident about it based on the way Cranky looks in Donkey Kong Bananza. The only other returning Kong we've seen so far, Cranky looks basically the same way he does or has since DK King of Swing. And I was like, okay, they're probably only going to touch Donkey Kong. That was the thing sticking in Miyamoto's craw all this time. It was Donkey Kong. And he probably won't tweak. He and his team probably won't muddle around with Diddy's face all that much. But then occasionally you would have those late night thoughts that, well, then again, he looked pretty different in the Super Mario Brothers movie. The same movie where they more or less debuted Donkey Kong's new design. So, I don't know.
Did you eventually know?
I think we know now because Diddy hasn't appeared in Mario Kart World and he won't be appearing at least at launch. I still maintain he's going to be DLC, but we've seen neither hide nor all of his little hairs in Donkey Kong Bananza footage as well. So we've just had this guesswork. We've just had this blind speculation up until the last few days. Because now, Dustin, we have our first render and a half of Diddy Kong's new design. And we're going to be breaking it down on this episode of The Kongversation. We're going to be discussing what's different down to the most minute detail. We're going to be talking about how we feel about the changes, and we're going to be talking about what this could possibly mean for Diddy's immediate future. So buckle up, strap in, put on your prosthetic golfing fingers, put on your blue contact lens, or take them out. Doesn't really matter at this point because we are going to be discussing Diddy Kong's new design. But before we get to that, Dustin, DK Vine is on YouTube, and we have just premiered our new 1 hour, 15-minute video production entitled The Donkey Kong Universe, Exploring Diddy Kong Racing's Enduring Legacy. This is something I've been spending 4 months on, trying to get this done. It's utterly depraved. I have something seriously wrong with me that I did this. But what I wanted to do was make the ultimate starting point to explain the concept of the Donkey Kong universe, Rare's shared universe. I wanted something that was going to stand the test of time, lay out the history as it happened from 1994 to 1997 and from 1997 through the present. And sprinkling in all this little stuff that I take for granted, that the DK Vine staff takes for granted, stuff we know by heart, but is starting to be lost to the fog of time, starting to be just no longer just common shared knowledge, because it's not common shared knowledge anymore. This is mostly the stuff that elder millennials actually lived through from the start, and then younger millennials, up until maybe like older Gen Z. But so many misconceptions are out there about this history now, and I wanted to, if not set the record straight, then at least get the record down in a somewhat breezy format and a somewhat visually stimulating format. So that's what this is. It's the sort of pseudo first installment of the DKU Lore Tour series. Not the first one I've made, but this will be the first in the proper chronology. It's the one you should start with.
To explain it,
yes. This is actually the DKU Lore Tour video, where the lore that is explored is the DKU itself.
Right. It's like how Star Wars Episode 1 was made after the original trilogy, huh?
Yeah, and it's probably just as good as Star Wars Episode 1 is.
Hyle, I watched it before we started recording. I didn't want to show up to the recording having not watched your big video you've worked so hard on.
I didn't expect you to watch it, Dustin.
Oh, no, of course. I've been waiting for it for a long time. Great video. I give it 2 big smelly thumbs up, and I recommended it to all of my friends.
Well, I'm glad you made those thumbs extra stinky for me. Thank you.
It was the only way to get my point across.
Yeah, no, I'm basically proud of this, of course. I'm like already finding, I'm already finding fault with, okay.
I love that. Basically proud of it.
You spend 4 months on something, and like already when I uploaded it, when I published it, this was, okay, so like I made it live for our early bird patrons yesterday, and then I was mortified to find that there were audio hiccups throughout the whole thing. So I had to go back. I had to fix everything. I re-uploaded it. The second upload on Patreon still had a couple audio hiccups, but those were because of like Patreon's own encoding or however, like the memory limit or whatever. So it was like clipping my audio, and I was like, fuck. And then I went back in again and tweaked a couple more things. And then after I published it on YouTube, I was already thinking, oh, I wish I could change that. I wish I could go in and add this. So it's one of those things where I get George Lucas now. Honestly, I get why he could never leave his films alone, because yeah, you release it and then you're like, oh shit, that's flawed. I feel terrible.
Yeah, it's one of those things you kind of relate to him more the more you start making stuff. Like when you're kind of on the outside of it, you're like, come on, just leave good enough alone. But then once you're making your own stuff, it's like, yeah, I guess I get it now.
It's hard to get outside of your own head. But no, more or less, I like this video. I'm happy with it. It did the job I set out to do. I don't think I could ever watch it again because it's just, yeah.
You've been working on it for a long time.
And this week, especially, because I knew I wanted to get it out before like the late May like holidays, and I wanted to get it out before the Switch 2 hoopla started. I wanted to just kind of get it out at the precipice of everything about to explode in our world. So I was like, this is the week I have to do it. This is my final push. And so for like 48 hours beforehand, I was just doing almost nothing but. And the funny thing about this episode of the Kongversation was not going to be this week's episode. Obviously, we didn't know. We didn't know that Diddy's new design render was going to be revealed. And so, Dustin, you and I, we had a whole different episode planned for this week that was going to be a lot more involved. It was going to probably be one of those 3-hour plus episodes. And it was just
one of the long ones.
It's going to require a lot of legwork, and I was just feeling drained yesterday, and I was like, and I still have to do a full conversation at the end of the week. And then this happened while I was just locked in the editing bay, and it kind of pierced my bubble, and I was like, well, at the very least, this can be the conversation, and we'll just push the other one to next week. But yeah, want to give a real quick hello to our patrons. I already mentioned our Patreon. You can watch flawed early versions of our products if you'd like, 24 hours before everyone else. But yeah, we also live stream the episodes of the Kongversation for our $5 and up patrons. And we've got a poppin' crowd. It's busting in our little Patreon stream right now. We've got March Rose, Zane Play, Chocolate Milk Drinker, Fizz Tap, S Monaco 14, Just Andre, Cameron's there. Hi, Cameron. We've got Porygon Q. Hello everyone.
Night of 1,000 stars.
Yeah. We'll be checking in as we go, as we're wont to do. But yeah, welcome.
Hello.
And we'll talk to you, but right now, Dustin and we need to talk about Diddy Kong's new design.
Yeah, sorry, we're a little busy right now. You guys can stay and listen if you want, but we're gonna kind of be talking to each other right now.
It's an emergency. Diddy Kong has a new design, and we must discuss it. So, this happened in the dumbest way possible. And we've been living through an era of dumb reveals on Nintendo's part, where they do something and you're like, you weren't supposed to do that, were you? There's the spoiler for Bananza that we are not discussing on the Kongversation as of yet, that Nintendo of Korea accidentally published some art from Bananza and then removed it very quickly, but it was just like, oh, yeah, thanks everyone. And at first, I was wondering, is this the same thing? Because what happened was, on the 13th of May, Nintendo accounts in Europe, Nintendo Switch owners across Europe, they got this news story in their Nintendo news feed on their Switches. This didn't appear on the Nintendo.com or .co.uk or the EU websites. This didn't show up there. This was only a story for Nintendo of Europe gamers, in that territory. And it was a little plug for Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. The story itself was join Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong on their adventures.
There's nothing more I want in this world.
The blurb itself said, check out this selection of games featuring the best of buds, and take a look at the highlights trailer above, where you can see the Kongs in action. And so this is something similar to what we've seen before, where it's just, here are some Donkey Kong games on Switch, and here are the cameo appearances in Mario games that they have made. And This is a little bit different because they added Returns HD, but it's Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, it's Mario Tennis Aces, it's Smash. Apparently the clip in the video itself is them fighting K. Rool in Smash, if that means anything. I mean, it means K. Rool was in Smash, so there you go. But
it means K. Rool's going to be in every video game ever made from here on out.
Yes, including
F-Zero.
Yeah, including Grand Theft Auto 6.
Yeah, that's right around the corner even. Oh wait, no it's not. They delayed it.
They delayed it till next year, but that's, in Donkey Kong terms, that's right around the corner still.
Yeah.
So, when this started being spread around the internet, and I don't know how early this was being shared, but I didn't see it until the 15th, because this was only in Europe. And I immediately checked my Switch and I was like, I don't see this news story. Where is this news story? And then so, deductive reasoning takes over and I said, okay, this must be region locked. This must be only in some territories. So I immediately started reaching out to my international contacts. I reached out to Freezer in Australia. And I was like, Freezer, can you check your Switch to see if this story is here? She checked, it was not. So I reached out to a bunch of my friends in the UK and continental Europe. Some friends of the show, some staffers, some Inner Circle patron members. And I said, can you tell me if this is on your Switch? And they said, yes, it is. And so it's like, aha.
Oh my goodness.
Aha. So this explains why we didn't know anything about this for 2 whole days. It's because most of the world didn't have access to it. And what makes this a big deal, of course, and you probably figured that out, dear audience, because you're listening to the We Need to Talk About Diddy Kong's New Design episode. This thumbnail art for the video has updated versions of classic stock renders for Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. Now, Donkey Kong has been updated in his new design. This is the stock render of him doing the weird thumbs up and just grinning.
Can I just say, Hyle?
Yeah.
So I'm sick of this pose, this render, but oh my god, does it look a million times better than the one we had before it.
I agree. Like, this has probably been one of my least favorite Donkey Kong stock renders. Talk about smelly thumbs up. This... there's just something about this that was just off-putting to me. And it looked like he was hitchhiking or something. But yeah, he does look better. Like, the toothy grin looks better with this design, honestly.
Yeah, like even when they just did the new version of this render. So there's like 3 versions of this render now. There's the original, the old crusty one. There's the updated one that's furry. Even that one I hate. I hate how his face looks. This one looks a lot better. I'm still sick of seeing this same pose for DK, but like, if they had to keep using it, this is the best version of that.
Yes, I agree. I think it's funny that Nintendo doesn't want to do new poses. Like, they find these poses they like for these stock renders, and they're like, we're just going to stick with that for 20 years. It's weird to me.
It's weird, but it's kind of fun in a way, just seeing how it changes over time, too.
Yeah, it's like those family photos where people like pose the same way, like over subsequent years, and you can see how they get older. And
here's DK 20 years from then.
So yeah, Donkey Kong has a new render, but we've seen a bunch of updated renders. Like, already with Donkey Kong, it's not really that newsworthy when one gets out in the wild at this point.
Right. It's just what they're doing.
Yeah, like the last time I think this was a really big story is when they swapped out the built-in Switch icons when they did the big new Switch update to future-proof it for the Switch 2 with the game cards and, you know, everything. And they switched the built-in Donkey Kong Switch profile icons to reflect the new design, and then the older ones are just lost forever. You can still access the old ones available through Nintendo Switch Online, of course, so that you can still get vintage DK renders as your Switch profile icon, assuming you've claimed those. But yeah, like that was a big story when they swapped out the Nintendo Music banner. That was kind of a big story. But now it's just like, yeah, they're going to keep doing this. But yeah. Diddy Kong, this is a big story. This is why we're doing this episode, because this is our first look at Diddy's new design in full render form. And it's quite frustrating, too, because it was only in this little thumbnail that is not at that high of a resolution. And like there's no way to like pluck this out from the Nintendo news feed. And
right.
Like I said, even I was limited with what I could do because I don't have access to this. I guess I could set my Switch to like Europe and then switch it back if it'll let me do that. But I don't like doing with that, because that kind of stuff freaks me out, because I'm always afraid like
you don't want to be locked into it forever.
Yeah, or locked out of like reverting back, and I don't know, like
it's like a curse. You have changed your region. Now you must forever be here.
Don't get me wrong, Europe's looking pretty sweet But
for sure. It's a change for the better.
I don't want my Switch to reflect it unless I'm living there.
Right.
Although, if they're getting all the sweet Donkey Kong news updates on their Switch, yeah, maybe I need to make that change. Anyway. So, this is a funny render to actually be the one that we see Diddy's new design with, because this particular stock render of Diddy has already been updated. Now, you mentioned the thumbs up Donkey Kong has been updated before, but it's funny because this one was a minor news story when it last got updated back in 2021. Cameron and I even did a Kongversation mini about it in season 9 called Hair Where Before There Was No Hair.
The classic.
Yes. So basically, the original Diddy render, and this is the render where he's got his right hand on his hip, like, striking a pose, and his left hand is kind of holding up the rim of his cap, his baseball cap, and like pulling it up a little bit, and he's like looking up, and he's like, ah.
He's catching flies.
He's airing out the old tongue, but like the original render from 2007, I believe Mario Party DS was the first time it was used. I don't think it was developed for Mario Party DS. I think this was just a stock render that they then pulled from. It's appeared in a lot of stuff since then. This is actually the Diddy render in Mario Kart Tour to this day. But they updated it in 2021, and this was like, oh my god, they've gone in and they've added the proper furry shenanigans to this Diddy. Furry shenanigans is the old DK Vine terminology for the rendered fur texture that looks, more realistic. That was first really pioneered by Rare, starting with Donkey Kong Country 2 and Killer Instinct 2. That was them pushing their, rendering capabilities to the next level. It was a huge step up from the previous years, Donkey Kong Country and Killer Instinct. And it was like, okay, yeah, like the Kongs actually have real fluffy fur now. Cool. And
it is cool.
In 2021, we saw that they were updating these old renders of Diddy, and we were like, oh my god, this could mean something. Because that was, right in the thick of us first really being open about Nintendo EPD doing Donkey Kong. And
Hyle, I hate to interrupt, but that term, right in the thick, oh man. I think that's something that should be said a lot more.
Well, we're going to be talking about how thick Diddy gets in just a bit. He's put on a few, it seems. But yeah, like in 2021, we thought like they're going through all this effort to update these stock renders of Diddy. And, we know Nintendo EPD is doing Donkey Kong. This could be some correlation. There could be some fire behind this smoke. And it's funny to me that we thought this 4 years ago, and then 4 years later, we are getting Donkey Kong, finally, for the Switch 2, the new 3D adventure, and they've gone and just updated the render again, because it wasn't good enough. It wasn't accurate, which makes me wonder exactly when they made a decision to update the appearances of Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong and presumably some other characters, when the actual decision, if there's ever a version of the older designs running around Donkey Kong Bananza. I wonder. But yeah, this is a new version, the third iteration of the stock render, and there are some changes. There are some pretty significant changes. Like we said, Diddy's not been tweaked as much as Donkey Kong, but I would say this is the most significant alteration to Diddy since 2003, since he got the extra fingers and toes.
For sure. Like, at a glance, he's pretty similar, but then once you squint, once you lean in, you really start to notice all of the little things that got updated.
Yes, and we're going to discuss it all, but I should point out, almost immediately after, later that night, later on May 15th, we got a second render, which is basically the first render that's just been reversed. But it is slightly different.
Yeah, it's not like they literally just did a mirror flip of the render, which is cool. It's cool that they actually made, like, it's the same exact pose, but like his stars are the way they should be.
Yes, and there's one element of his hat that isn't visible, that's visible on the smaller, blurrier render on the Nintendo news feed.
Right.
So this second render, or second version of this render, showed up on the Super Mario website that Nintendo runs. I think it's like supermario.com, but they have a little character selection. There's no references to Donkey Kong on the Super Mario website, except when you click on characters at the very, very, very end of the list, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong are there. And Donkey Kong has his new design there, and Diddy Kong has his new design there. I think everything else is the same. Like they kept the little biographical text, the little bio blurb. Donkey Kong's trusted friend and partner. His trademarks are his red shirt with yellow stars and a red cap. Though not as strong as DK, Diddy Kong is agile and a great jumper. He's fast as well, and a great ally for helping DK protect his banana stash.
His banana stash, wow.
His banana stash, yeah, which just makes it sound even more lurid than a banana horde.
Hyle, I don't think any truer words have ever been written on the internet ever. He does have a red shirt with yellow stars.
He does. They are his trademarks, in fact. Those stars are trademarked. But it was this render, this version of the render, that we saw with greater clarity some of the details that kind of slipped through the cracks on the earlier one. So let's discuss it, Dustin. Let's discuss how Diddy is different from how he looked the last time we saw him. Of course, the last time we saw him was in Tetris 99 back in February.
Man, where does the time go? It feels like just a few months ago we just saw him.
I know, and Donkey Kong had his old design too, so they went through some pretty significant changes in the last 3 months.
That's true. I think I'm still the same as I was 3 months ago.
I think I've aged dramatically, so I can relate. But Diddy's new look. So let's just start with, I think, the big one. The most significant one, you may argue at home, that's fine. But I think this is, as far as changing some of the fundamentals of Diddy Kong, as we've known it, in this case since 1995, this is a pretty big one. It looks like Diddy no longer has the Nintendo logo on his baseball cap.
Right, which I think makes sense. To be perfectly honest, I'm a little surprised they kept it for so long.
Yeah, so for those who don't know the history, 1994, Diddy did not have a Nintendo logo on his baseball cap. He didn't have the red shirt with yellow stars. It was just plain red tank top. And then in 1995, on the renders for Donkey Kong Country 2, that's when they started adding these little flourishes. They added the stars. They added the Nintendo logo, although it's not there in every render. And it wasn't actually reflected, of course, on the in-game models because they were just reused from DKC. But eventually, in 1997, Diddy Kong Racing, that's when you started to see the yellow stars on his shirt, although the Nintendo logo wasn't there yet because it was just too fine of a detail to actually put on his little model. But
right.
Yeah, like the Nintendo logo on the hat has been kind of a fixture since 95 for the last 30 years. And occasionally he's gone without it. The Mario and Sonic at the Olympic series, he doesn't have the Nintendo logo on his cap in those games. And the theory is it's because the IOC prohibits company sponsorships during the Olympic Games. Like for the athletes, they're not allowed to wear branded clothing or clothing with logos or anything on there. And so Diddy actually wearing that during the Olympic Games, however fictionalized they are, is a direct counter to the way the IOC wants the Olympic Games portrayed. So Diddy went without the logo. He just wore a basic red cap, the same one from 1994.
Good thing he held on to it.
Well, he keep them in mothballs and they don't get eaten by the jungle bugs.
Right, a little sentimental, little memento of his first adventure.
Maybe you shrink wrap it. I don't know. The other time we saw him without the Nintendo logo was in the Super Mario Brothers movie when he made that little cameo in the Ring of Kong alongside Dixie and Chunky. Do you remember this, Dustin? Do you remember this movie when it came out in 2023?
The Super Mario Brothers movie, you say?
Yeah. Not the live action one, but the Illumination one, the Minion folk. They did it.
I guess it kind of rings a bell.
He made a small cameo in that. He was in the crowd and Cranky was like...
No shit.
Cranky was like, you little punk, shut up, or I'm going to come over there
Shut your fucking mouth.
I'm going to smack your duck-looking face. I'm going to smack it ugly.
That shut him up real fast.
So, in the crowd, Diddy, he's moving all around, and he's emoting, he's reacting to what happens. And then he's somehow very happy when Donkey Kong gets beaten by Mario. He's playing the bongos, and I'm like, what are you doing, Diddy Kong, you little punk? But on his baseball cap, he doesn't have the Nintendo logo, but on the right-hand side, his right, from our perspective, it's on the left side, stage left, but he's got a little pin on his cap that has in yellow lettering D.
What a button to put on. Hyle, I don't know if I've said it on the show before, but I don't love that emblem for Diddy. I've never been a big fan of the DD, and that's not an uncommon feeling about it, I think. But it's just a button. It doesn't bother me that much. Yeah,
they invented it for Tropical Freeze because they wanted to differentiate the DK barrels in that game and communicate to the player, this is the Kong inside this barrel at this time. This DD, and he had blue lettering, that was Diddy. DX was Dixie. CK was Cranky. And then later in the Switch version, FK was Funky.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I understood it. And, I think at one point I asked why couldn't they just color code it? But then that doesn't solve the problem for people who are colorblind or...
Right. It's one of those things where I don't love the solution they landed on, but I get it. I understand. You're kind of in a position where you don't have a whole lot you can really do.
Yeah, I think DD is kind of inelegant, but yeah, it serves its purpose, I guess. But I never really warmed up to it as the iconography for Diddy. And I think what really bugged me was the emblems used then in things like Mario Kart Tour were very inconsistent because Diddy's emblem was already the stars on his shirt. And they added Dixie and Funky. And Funky used the little like emblem of his face. That's apparently his like corporate branding. And Dixie, they used DX for her. And I'm just like, ugh, that just, why does she get DX? Diddy gets his stars. Funky gets his little airplane logo. It just, I don't like how inconsistent it is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like you said, it's inelegant, but if that's the situation we're in, you know, it's such a minor thing.
Right. Like, again, it's one of those things I don't really like, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it because it's ultimately just a small detail on a cartoon monkey.
Right, and I love Diddy. Like the rest of them, I'm like, yay, Diddy Kong.
Yeah. And, well, Dustin, that pin is on this new render.
Oh, my lordy bagordy.
Lordy bagordy, son of Jordy. Yeah, they've done away with the Nintendo logo. This is now unadorned hat, like no printing on it, but it's got the little DD pin, which, okay, I think it's more of a modern touch, like putting pins on clothing. It's probably,
I like that a lot.
It's probably a little bit more relatable to contemporary fashions than just wearing a printed hat. Also, not to wade in these waters too much, but a red baseball cap with white printing on it has different connotations these days than it did back in 95 or 2002 or even 2014 when Tropical Freeze came out. So I can see why they're like, let's change this. And it's one of those things where it's going to take some time to get used to again, but I can roll with it. I can cartwheel with it in this case.
Yeah, the idea of having buttons in his hat, I think, is really cool. I just don't love the button itself, but what are you going to do?
Right. Like, I don't know what else they would do, really. Like, you could use DK, but then you run into the problem then, you know, like, I understand they want to give him his own branding. And that's good, because I don't want him just to be a mini-me of Donkey Kong. I want him to have his own identity and feeling. I guess I get hung up on it because in the original Donkey Kong Country and Land games, the DK barrels were for everyone. And it was just a bit weird when Tropical Freeze came out that all of a sudden, no, DK only means Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I guess when you have so many Kongs to pick from, they had to do something, so...
And honestly, that was already torpedoed, blown to hell in DKC3, or at least in the West when they went with Kiddy Kong, and they didn't use Dinky or some other D name for Dixie's sidekick in that. So, yeah, I like the pin, and I think it's going to be easier than for Nintendo, where they don't have to reverse the Nintendo logo when they say mirror it. They can just remove the pin. Boom. Done. Yeah. It's gone. I think that's just going to be a little bit easier for them to readily roll out Diddy art and alternates. We've already seen the alternate of this artwork on the Super Mario website. So, like, that's cool. That's cool to see that in action and how that works. Answers, like, at the ready. We don't have to question this. Because I was like, well, what are they going to do with the lack of symmetry? But Diddy's hat was never symmetrical except when it didn't have anything on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's one of those changes where it's like, okay, that's new, that's different. Moving down the face, though. So, his eyes. Okay, so we saw on the Nintendo news feed that there seemed to be some division between his eyes now. And at the time we thought, okay, it's kind of like Banjo, like the way Rare would do the mono eye when they didn't want to just have a mono eye, they would have a thin line down the middle.
Right, something to show that they're separate.
Yeah, which I liked. I like the idea of one monstrous eye, like almost a cyclops, but actually both eyes are there. They're just this one gelatinous blob in the skull. It's terrifying, right?
Yeah, it's Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, and that guy, he can't collect hero coins.
He couldn't collect hero coins to save his fucking life.
He didn't have proper vision. Like he couldn't like turn his eyes properly, see that the hero coin was right over there.
If only, the fool.
Looking at the larger render, though, on the Super Mario website, we clearly saw that he's got a little bridge of skin down the middle. And I think this is the most controversial change to Diddy. This little skin flint, this little skin wad, this wad of flesh between his eyes. Because it's not like there's fur between the eyes. This is just like pink, like his chin or stomach. Pinkish brown.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure how I feel about it at the moment. It's another thing where I'm sure I'll get used to it. I will say though, this is another thing where I'm very surprised that Diddy's had the mono eye sort of look this whole time. That seems like something that would have gone out the window a long time ago. And, you know, it's rendered in different ways here and there. Sometimes they look more separate than others. But, yeah, it's another thing on paper. I like separating the eyes.
Yes.
Now, the way they did it, I'm a little iffier on. Like I said, I'll probably get used to it. But it's throwing me off right now.
It's one of those things, it probably looks worse in renders, in stills, than it does in motion. And
for sure.
I think this is honestly a positive development, because I've always argued Diddy doesn't actually, literally, have one big mono eye. There is a division there, we just can't see it.
It's a weird thing where you just kind of have to squint at his design. You have to say, yeah, I'll assume he has two eyes. It looks like Sonic eyes, but it obviously it can't be. So yeah, I do think it's good they're doing this.
Just Andre in the chat says, as Courtney, our friend Courtney, Alter Mentality, said in her Discord yesterday, yeah, it's like a millimeter of flesh. Which,
yeah,
Dustin, I know we've talked about starting a band. Well, we don't know how to play instruments, but at least we have a name.
Yeah, you know what? A millimeter of flesh is a good... I don't think that's been taken yet.
No, I'll have to ask Courtney for
reason.
Permission to use it, but yeah. Chocolate Milk Drinker says, I really like the little skin divider. It makes him look more like a real monkey in a way I can't describe. Yeah, I showed it to my wife. I showed it to my wife, and she said, well, at least he's more anatomically correct.
I think that's true. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And, like, I think the other reason it's throwing me off is just because I'm so used to the way it was before. But that's... I think, at the end of the day, I do think that it is a good change.
Cameron says, Banjo and Kazooie have two separate eyes mushed together next to each other like a mono eye, which I assume they'd do at some point with Diddy, but never did. Yeah, that's why I'm surprised, because I saw that smaller, blurrier render, and I thought, well, they've finally done it. I'm surprised it took this long, but it's cool to see. And then we saw there's a little millimeter of flesh. But again, going back to the Super Mario Brothers movie, there was a skin divider, a skin bridge on that design, but it was much more pronounced there.
Yeah, I will say I'm glad they didn't do that. I think it works for the movie design fine, but I'm glad this little gap between the eyes is smaller than that. It's
always been such an iconic part of the Rare Monkey design, like the monkey Kongs, the smaller Kongs, having that kind of close set eyes, large, bulbous, almost almond eyes. That's always been a consistency of those designs, and I'm glad they haven't changed it too much, where you could plausibly say it's still the same, we're just seeing it in much higher detail. This is what Diddy Kong looks like in 4K.
Right, yeah. So, again, it's something I'll get used to, I'm sure. But, yeah, in practice, I think it's good.
The eyes themselves, I think the shape is a little bit different. I think they're a little bit rounder and a little bit less oval.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's not so much that it's distracting or at least something you immediately notice. But the difference is there, especially because we have this ready comparison with 2 past renders. And so we can say, oh yeah, the eyes look a little bit rounder. They look a little bit more like huge fucking eyeballs rather than the McDonald's logo, white paint oozing down from its arches.
Right.
I was just trying to think something that was M-shaped and white, and I couldn't think of anything to make a suitable analogy.
Don't worry, Hyle. I got it. I got what you were going for. I think one thought that just came to mind was you compare how Diddy looks in the Mario movie compared to how he looks in the games. And they had to make changes for him to fit that world, like fit in with the rest of those designs.
Uh-huh.
But with this Diddy, with the way Diddy is here, you really don't have to change that much, I think. Like, he just has 2 separate eyes. You don't need to, like, reinterpret anything with this Diddy.
Right. Also, and this isn't necessarily new, but it's not something we've seen on non-Smash Brothers renders of Diddy. I believe this is the first time outside of Smash Diddy has been portrayed with hazel or brown eyes.
I think so. I'm not really remembering any other time. They look good. They look very nice.
So, of course, Diddy started out with just black pupils, black dots, back in 1994. In 1997, Rare gave him blue eyes, which, nostalgia aside from that being the way he looked in Diddy Kong Racing and Donkey Kong 64, and me obviously having affection for that era, the blue eyes never really worked for Diddy. He looked just weird and almost
they just stood out too much.
Too human-like. I don't know. Like, there's just something uncanny about Diddy with blue eyes. And I think maybe they wanted a contrast with Dixie, who has green eyes, and so I don't know. But after the buyout, when Diddy debuted his new prosthetic golfing finger look in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, he was just given black eyes again. Not like he was been punched repeatedly in the face, but he just had like little black dots, maybe with a little bit more lighting in there and a little bit more going on, but it was still basically, they just removed the color from his eyes again. And then, Sakurai just does whatever he wants. He and his team just kind of add so much detail that isn't there in the actual games that these characters are being pulled from in Smash. And that was where he first was given the brown eyes.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And so he never had those in the Donkey Kong games or the Mario games he appeared in. He's got them now. And honestly, I think that looks best. I think that looks...
I agree.
Like there's...
They go with his color palette better.
Exactly. Yes, they do. They do. And it looks like there's something there. It looks like there's a real person. Well, I mean, to an extent, he's still a cartoon monkey, but
you don't want him to be too real.
Yeah, you don't want that freakish, like, horrific close-up like in the Ren and Stimpy shots, or like you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, of course I do. And a foghorn plays.
The super textured skin with the oily pores and like an errant hair sticking out and just ugh.
I love that in things like Ren and Stimpy and SpongeBob. Not so much I want it with my Diddy Kong.
Yeah. So, yeah, brown eyes. Cool. I should also point out that the brow that we were seeing in the 2D illustrated artwork isn't necessarily noticeable in this render, although comparing his forehead, he does have more forehead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that might be...
I always said I want my Diddy Kong to have more forehead.
I was like, I love Diddy Kong, but I wish there was like 3% more of him. Where can we get 3% more of him? And Nintendo said, we probably have some forehead to spare.
We have a little forehead real estate we can give away.
Now, I don't think they actually elongated his skull. like they bound his skull, like those customs where they try to like give babies like the elongated, you know what I'm talking about, right?
No.
Okay.
This sounds horrifying.
So a baby's skull is very soft, and in some cultures they would bind the skull to make it like just very upwards and pointy, and then they're like, wow, why does that baby have a very, very long, tall skull? Well, they didn't do that with Diddy. Oh my
goodness.
They didn't do that with Diddy. I think it's just his eyes are less almond-shaped, and he has rounder eyes.
That's good to know that they did not do that with Diddy.
I'm still going to have to see more renders of him or in-game footage to really assess the brow situation, because we do have reason to suspect some of the monkey characters are getting brows, but I don't really see a brow on Diddy. It just looks like he has more forehead. So
yeah,
let's just, like his hat, put a pin in this for now. We'll come back to the brow discussion at a later date.
Good thinking. Good idea, Hyle.
Dustin, I know you want to talk about the nose.
Was it that obvious?
I can smell it, ironically enough. I can smell it from here how badly you want to talk about Diddy Kong's new nose.
I had sweat drops just running down my forehead, and they smelled just like wanting to talk about this new nose.
And you've got so much forehead now, and so you would think, oh, that sweat's going to stay on there for a while. But what's happening is you're producing more of it on your forehead. And so it's still reaching your nose at exactly the same speed.
That's true. I can't give this sweat away.
So Diddy's new nose, it's not that much of a difference. It's really in line with what they were doing with the Kongs before. It's just slightly raised. It's slightly elevated. He doesn't like have a nose. He's still got just like the holes in his face, but there is this nose-like structure right underneath his eyes. Actually, the skin bridge, the millimeter of flesh, connects to the nose. So
yeah, and I think I'll like that more when I can see it at an angle. I can appreciate the nose and bridge connecting better. Here, he's looking up, so the nose kind of blocks where it would connect.
He's looking up, and his mouth is wide open. It's agape, so that's really throwing it off. Like, I want to see Diddy with his damn mouth shut so I can get a better understanding of how his new skull works.
Yeah, exactly. I want to study this new monkey.
Now, his ears are also smaller.
Yeah, that's an interesting change. I never looked at Diddy before and thought, you know what? Those ears, a little too big.
Yeah, I'm a little curious about this because this does not match the monkey miners we see in Bananza. The monkey miners have huge honking ears that just stick out well beyond their little hard hats, their little mining helmets. Here, his ears don't really extend past his baseball cap now. And in the past, especially this past version of this render, they did stick up past his baseball cap. So again, it's an interesting change. I'm not sure why they did it. Although I will say, I think this makes his features look more monkey-like and less chimp-like.
Ooh, that's a good point. Maybe it was for a purpose.
You know, one of my biggest pet peeves is people calling Diddy Kong a chimp.
Yeah, he is not a chimp.
He's not a chimp, but this is like a common misnomer. And I've seen people comment, they're like, if Diddy's a chimp, why does he have a tail? And I'm like, well, it's because Diddy is not a chimp.
Yeah, the answer is he's not what you just said.
But it's just a small change. The ears also have less definition.
Oh yeah, I know. I didn't notice that. That's interesting.
Like before, I could easily stick my finger in Diddy's ears, swish it around a little bit, pull it out, see what's there. Now I don't know how I'm getting in there. His ear canal is so much smaller.
Yeah, like before, I was able to picture all of the little crevasses, all of the little structures.
For sure.
And now the way his ear works is a mystery to me.
I know you're not supposed to put Q-tips in your ear. I know they say that's just going to compact the wax even more. What are you doing? And I say, I understand that. I'm not giving medical advice here, but it feels so good. And, you know, we all could use a little bit of an ear canal massage from time to time. We all deserve to be pampered. We all deserve that feeling, that taste of luxury. And
right, we all like to go to the ear spa every now and then.
That's right, you know, and just feel the sensation of a little cotton affixed to this cardboard tube going in there. And it's always a little titillating thrill. What's going to come out?
Yeah, it's the exact same feeling as masturbation, really.
It's just a different form. It's just a different way of using your body for pleasure. And I'm all about embracing one's feelings of body positivity and being sex positive.
It's 2025 here.
Yeah, I know we've regressed in a lot of ways in recent years, but I think we could all use some ear masturbation from time to time, Dustin. I hope
we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I'm not being lewd here. I'm just speaking facts. And
it's a natural urge.
I always like to relate to characters by thinking how they stick Q-tips in their ears. And it's a bit weird now that I don't really know how Diddy does it. And I'm just like, Diddy, what do you do when you wake up at 1:30 in the morning and you're like, I could really go for a good ear massage right now? Or, you know, look, sometimes it's hot, you know, dead of summer, and you want to cool yourself down. You pour some cold water over Q-tips and stick them in your ears. Give yourself a little wet willy, but what that does is that cools down your internal body temperature really fast.
Wow, I've never heard of that, but that
it's
makes
so
sense.
Refreshing. It's so refreshing. Now, I'm not saying stick Q-tips in your ears, people. Please, don't take my advice.
DK Vine cannot be held accountable.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I don't know what I'm talking about. I just know what feels good, and it feels amazing. Anyway. Dustin, let's move down Diddy's body. We're just getting lower and lower. And we've reached the point where we're now at a big wet hole.
Oh my goodness. It's so wet in there.
It's so much.
This new design is 20% more wet inside.
It's so much more moist. I can see the tongue glistening inside his new mouth hole.
I think we can all agree that this is a change Diddy's needed for a while. Is a wetter mouth.
He's not going to keep this tongue wet if he keeps his mouth open like this. Close the damn mouth, Diddy. But in past renders, specifically this stock render, his tongue has just looked pale and sad.
Right. A very pathetic tongue.
It looks almost like Laffy Taffy.
Yeah, I have been wanting to chew on it.
Or maybe like a wad of bubble gum that's been used up and somebody just spit it out on the ground.
like, you look at that and you say, that doesn't have any more flavor.
There's no flavor on that tongue. But then you look at this new one, and it's like ruby red. It's just, it's going to be bursting with cherry flavor.
That's just the way I like my Diddy Kongs. Bursting with flavor.
Yeah, I'm not saying I want to suck on Diddy Kong's tongue. Please, don't put words in my mouth. Don't put his tongue in my mouth. But just think about it. Think about having a monkey in front of you with a cherry-flavored tongue. And just think about that temptation for a bit. Like, anytime you want, you could have a burst of cherry flavor. Refreshing. Just as refreshing as sticking a wet Q-tip in your ear on a hot summer's day.
Yeah, it sticks its tongue out at you and says, I know you want to.
And I just love that Diddy has such active saliva glands. I love that whatever is going on in Diddy's life in 2025, his mouth is watering.
And you know what? This render really does feel like he's opening his mouth wide to show it off.
And, if this was actually an animated render, if this was a GIF or GIF, I don't know what's what anymore, you just know the drool is going to start coming out in a matter of seconds. Like, he's going to have Niagara Falls down his chin.
He's a very moist talker.
He's spraying it when he's saying it.
And he doesn't care who knows it.
So yeah, big fan of the tongue. A+ job on the tongue, Nintendo. As a fan of Diddy Kong, I would say this is the best his tongue has ever looked.
I think that's true. It's at least in the top 5.
I don't say this stuff lightly.
You have to put a lot of thought. You can't just throw these claims around.
No. I let it marinate on my own tongue before I let it roll off. Let's talk about the little baby teeth. Little chompers.
So, Hyle, I've said before, I don't really like when they give Diddy teeth. I've made my peace with DK having teeth. I've gotten used to it. But Diddy, it's always looked weird. And here, it's kind of no exception. It does look a little weird, but at the same time, I think, well, if a character opens their mouth, honestly, it's weirder when they don't have teeth. Like, I know we're so used to the Kongs not having teeth.
Right.
In a lot of their old renders. But the more I thought about it, because this is the most I've thought about it. Up until now, I've just been like, I don't really like that. I like when he doesn't have teeth. But the more I've been thinking about it lately, the more I'm like, well, it's weird when they don't. If a character opens their mouth, they should have... Imagine if Mario opened his mouth and he just did not have any visible teeth. That would be weird.
I don't know.
That would be strange.
Getting bonked in the head with bricks day in and day out, I'm amazed Mario has any teeth left. They're probably veneers. Like, he's probably got falsies. But, yeah, like, I could see Mario open his mouth and it just be a big, gummy smile. It's a noise you make. I hate it. That's the noise you make. But yeah. I think we're used to the Kongs not having teeth because that was just the standard set down with Donkey Kong Country.
We've just seen it all the time.
And then we grew such an aversion to the Kongs having teeth due to the inelegant way they would incorporate it post-buyout, with Donkey Kong trying to emulate the arcade Donkey Kong in the toothy grin and it just looking monstrous. So this became a dividing line in the fandom, and a lot of our taste and preferences grew from there. And so the Kongs not having teeth was always viewed as a positive, a good design choice. I remember even in the Smash Brothers Ultimate Best Friends trailer, the bit where Banjo-Kazooie reveal themselves, and then Donkey no longer has teeth. He's doing it the fist pump through the window, and he's just got the big gummy grin, and I'm just like, oh yeah, the rare characters show up and the teeth just recede.
DK instinctively retracts his teeth.
Like Wolverine and his claws. Just... So yeah, like, pre-buyout, we saw in things like the Donkey Kong Racing trailer, Rare was starting to add small little teeth to the Kongs. We saw them in Donkey Kong's model for Donkey Kong Racing. I think this would have been the design norm had Rare stuck around anyway. So I like the little teeth in Diddy. It's much better than when they try to give Diddy the same toothy grin that they gave Donkey Kong. If they're going to try to standardize the designs and find a nice harmony at long last, I think giving Diddy small teeth is much preferable to giving him the DK arcade teeth.
I definitely agree. Like, looking at this render, it is still throwing me off a little bit, especially since we have those old renders to compare it to. Just a direct comparison where he doesn't have the teeth. But yeah, like I've said many times before, I think it is something that I will get used to the more I see it. And it just makes sense.
Just Andre says, all of the prep for this episode has just been Hyle compiling a ranking of Diddy's tongue appearances in order to be able to make that declaration. Look, Andre, I didn't have to compile a damn thing. It's in my memory banks.
Yeah, he knew going into this episode where each tongue ranked.
Cameron says, Hyle's a big fan of the episode 1 Jar Jar Binks lollipop. You know, I never bought one of those. And I was like so into Star Wars when episode 1 came out, so I probably would have given it a whirl had I actually stumbled across it in stores, but I never did. I never sucked on that Jar Jar lollipop.
Some people just never get to experience it.
I do like sucking on a good tongue, though, from time to time.
Who doesn't?
There's something very satisfying about just getting someone's tongue in your mouth and going to town.
Hyle, truer words never been said before.
I don't speak lies.
Hyle thinks about these things before he says them, before he puts these thoughts into the world.
I want you to be thinking about the next part of Diddy's body, or rather, the clothes draped across it, because while there isn't much to discuss about his tank top, it's basically the same as it's been. We are now seeing it in much greater detail. We can see the textures of the fabric.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. It doesn't look like it breathes, though. Like, I'm worried that it's too hot in the jungle humidity.
It kind of reminds me of Cranky's top a little bit.
Yeah, but he's an old man. He gets cold much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this, I'm like, I know Diddy's doesn't have pants. He doesn't have trousers. He's just bare in his crotch. By the way, his crotch is the same, more or less. But
you can't improve perfection.
Like, this doesn't look like a light cotton blend to me. This looks like it's almost this woolly wee. I don't know what fabric this is supposed to be, but I just worry it's going to be very, very hot, even though it doesn't have sleeves. Like, I would be rushing to the sink with Q-tips, sticking them in my ear if I was wearing something like this in the kind of climate Diddy Kong lives in. But I don't even know how Diddy does that, because I don't know how his ears work anymore.
That's true. That's so true, Hyle. You know what? Maybe he wears it more for the comfort. He's just like, you know what? It feels real nice on my exposed skin. It's
like a thunder shirt where you put on dogs when it's storming and they're scared, and it binds them and makes them feel like, they're secure.
Yeah, Diddy saw that and said, I could do that.
I mean, Diddy has probably trauma flashbacks of the Donkey Kong Country story. It was a dark and stormy night when he got thrown inside a barrel by the Kremlins.
That's true.
Let's talk about Diddy's gut, Dustin.
Okay. Look at that thing.
Diddy's got a little bit of a belly now. And this is not something necessarily new. Diddy's fluctuated in weight across the years.
I think his guts looked bigger in the Rare era, honestly.
I think Cranky even had dialogue in DKC too, where he called him fat, which not cool.
Rude.
Not cool, Cranky. Like, don't body shame.
Right. I like that Diddy owns it, though. He always shows that thing off.
Yeah, he just pulls up his shirt a little bit, smacks it around, and goes, oh.
Yeah, what are you going to do about it, old man?
But yeah, it's definitely more pronounced now, which, I like. Everybody changes appearance. Everybody fluctuates in weight, and I like that we can look at this Diddy and say, yeah, he hasn't gone on many adventures recently. He's maybe put on a few. It's fine.
Little pudgy, just like DK.
DK stopped training for the Olympics, gained a lot of weight, but he's got the dad bod now, and there's a lot of people who find that sexy.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Now, let's also talk about Diddy's fingernails and toenails.
Oh, I thought this moment would never come.
He's got lifelike fingernails and toenails now, just like Donkey Kong does.
Just like we do.
Just like me?
See, Diddy's just as relatable as before. He also has finger and toenails.
Oh, that's so awesome. Now I'll have something to talk to him about at the cocktail party.
Hey, so you have toenails, I have two toenails. What's happening here?
Of course, in my logic, right, this is just a new upgraded model of prosthetic golfing fingers.
Of course. He's like, well, I gotta get some nice fingernails on these.
They've upgraded the model. This is the Deluxe or the Lux model. That has
the DX model.
Yeah, it has fingernails now, so you can grip that golf club even harder.
He can pick up any penny he wants.
He's like, we don't even use this currency on DK Island.
But check this shit out anyway.
So yeah, that's Diddy's new design. I have to say, compared to the Super Mario Brothers movie, I am so on board with this because the Super Mario Brothers movie also gave him the basketball jersey. It changed his tank top to a basketball jersey. And
right.
Like that design choice makes sense. And honestly, I could have seen that back in 1994, 1995, like kind of the real big height and explosion of basketball as a sport. Like the NBA, I think, was at its all-time high. We were just coming off of the peak years of Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, like
right.
Basketball stars were actually becoming like crossover movie stars at that time. And so I could have seen Diddy wearing this in 94, but it's just such a dramatic rethink of his wardrobe that I'm glad
it's too much.
It's too much. I'm glad for the games they decided to keep some design hallmarks the same. And that really helped. Like the same thing with DK's tie. They didn't give him a bolo tie or a dicky tie or
I was going to say a dicky.
Yeah, like they just kept it the necktie, which I think
is dicky
smart.
On DK?
Oh. Actually,
now I think they should have done it.
Now I want to see that. We still don't know what you can get from the style shop in Bonanza, so maybe you can get
happen.
All the different ties. A little bow tie that spins
and goes woo.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I am really looking forward to seeing what costumes, but hey, we're not here to talk about what we want to see in Donkey Kong Bananza.
Well, maybe.
Not yet.
Yeah. And as I said, compared to the monkey miners in Bonanza, because we saw these monkey miners, and a lot of people were seeing these monkey miners and they're like, oh God, I hope this isn't how Diddy's going to look. Just because the monkey miners, they look a little haggard. They look a little worse for wear. I mean, they've been working hard, mining the Bonandium, and they've got droopy eyes, they've got the brows, they got more pronounced brows than we usually see on monkeys in these games, but like I could see some of these design elements carrying over to Diddy in game, but I think this render is basically how he's going to look. I don't think there'll be too much in the way of variations. Now, I could see over the next few years some things being tweaked here or there. Like I could see the skin bridge being reduced or colored differently, or maybe even be done away with and just being the like very light separation between the eyes. I think nothing stays cemented forever. And I think like just seeing the way Diddy's design or even the Mario cast have slowly evolved throughout the years, like this isn't necessarily going to be the way Diddy looks 10 years from now.
Yeah. Although I will say, like, we've discussed this Diddy design. There's some stuff I got to get used to, but overall, I just think it's so cool that we get to see these characters refreshed. Like, those crusty old renders have been around for so long. I think it's cool they can go... I think it's cool that they can go in and say, no, we can do some small tweaks to Diddy. We can do a Diddy for the modern age. He doesn't have to be locked in the same place he was forever. And yeah, I do agree. I'm glad they didn't change him up as much as the movie does. But even just these small tweaks, I think, go a long way.
Yeah, and I think he looks good next to the new Donkey Kong design as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I know some people didn't like seeing just Cranky as we know him standing next to the new Donkey Kong design. Like there's some cognitive dissonance there for some folk. So I think like changing up Diddy's look, and there is a lot of similarity with the movie design, which I think we're going to discuss a little bit when we take the calls.
Oh.
Because we did get some calls for this episode. Now,
look at you, Hyle, with the calls.
Yeah. I've got a voicemail. So if you would like to call the Kongversation to leave your thoughts, the DK Vine hotline is always open. Dial 1-202-630-VINE. It's 8463. And can't always play all the calls, obviously. No guarantees, but I do try to, at the very least, listen to them eventually. So, you're not just screaming into the void. Although if you need to scream into the void, I recommend just doing that without making a phone call.
I recommend that too. Yeah. I was like just thinking that, and then you said it.
So there's obviously some salient talking points we could discuss about, I don't know, Donkey Kong Bananza and why this Diddy render exists now and all sorts of stuff. But I imagine it's going to come up in the calls. And if it doesn't, hey, look, we'll just bring it up ourselves. But let's go ahead and play our first caller.
Hey, this is Carl Nex letting you know, just in case you don't know, you probably do, but I haven't seen it on Blue Sky or the site or anything. Diddy Kong just got a redesign a la Donkey Kong. And we found this out because his old render was updated in a Nintendo news article, the little news app they have on your Switch. That was uploaded a few days ago, and they just changed out the renders. So he has teeth now, and he has a little badge on his hat, and possibly the Nintendo logo has been removed. But I think obviously the presence of this redesign indicates that he'll probably be in Bananza. That was likely before, but it's more or less locked in now, and yeah, just wanted to let you know just in case you didn't. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the call. I love that people's first thought is, I need to call the DK Vine hotline about this.
Yeah, I'm glad they take us into consideration.
No, like I said, I was locked in my editing suite trying to get this video done. So it was probably the worst time for any significant DK news to actually break open. And I was a little bit later getting the news article up because of that. But also I had to verify it. I couldn't just fly off the handle and do a news article. Like, I take my shit seriously. I mean, independent Donkey Kong...
Right, you want it to be official.
Independent Donkey Kong journalism is a serious profession. I demand it be taken seriously. And I'm like the Arrested Development Magicians Alliance photo. But I won't run a story unless I can verify it with my own eye. So just people sharing stuff on Reddit or message boards doesn't fly. Like, I need validation. So it took me a while to source this and to rely on my international contacts. And finally I was able to track down exactly what was happening. But thank you. I do appreciate people reaching out to me. And also I got tagged probably 15 times on Blue Sky, and I'm sure elsewhere. But yes, I eventually did the news article with all the little details that everybody who's very quick to get it out there don't provide. So if I can't be first, I want to be the most thorough. So thank you for the call. All right, we will discuss what it means for Bananza here, but we have other calls, so let's go ahead and play our second.
Okay.
Diddy's back, and he's different. Different Diddy. Diddy different. Hello, Hyle. Hello, co-host. I forgot who's co-hosting you on this one, but I'm sure they're beautiful. We have seen Diddy Kong, and he's new and he's strange, but I like it. He's got teeth now. He looks like the movie, but not entirely. It's not like straight up the movie design, but he does have elements from it, right? Like the button pin on his hat. His eyes are separate now, which is kind of strange, but I like it. It reminds me, the way they did it, it reminds me of the Sonic movies, right? He doesn't have the one eye in the movies. He has two different eyes, but they put like a patch of white fur in between his eyes. So if you squint, it kind of looks like he's got the separate, the connected eyes and the white skin around Diddy's eyes. It looks like that to me. It's not too different from the old design. You know, the eyes are different. He doesn't have the Nintendo logo on his hat anymore, at least not from what we can see. But it's still recognizably Diddy. It's still the Diddy we all know and love. And I like that he's got a new design because it shows they're doing stuff with him. You know, it's the same principle as seeing Donkey Kong's redesign in, like, Mario Kart World for the first time back in January. You know, like it shows you, hold on. I think they're doing something with this guy. It's just, I want to see more Kongs. I want to see if Dixie looks different. I want to see if Chunky exists. You know? I will say, I have seen some people say that, like, cause, like, they also had that, new Mario art with, like, all the Mario characters, and they're all a little different, and Donkey Kong is in his new design. I've seen some people be like, they're just trying to make Donkey Kong look like Mario. I don't think so. I really just think Miyamoto wanted to make him look more like his art style, and that's just Miyamoto's art style. And the other Mario characters also look like his art style, so, you know. You know, Diddy's back, you guys. We love this.
We do love this, don't we, Dustin?
Yeah, I guess that's what the DD stands for, is different Diddy.
Well, it's funny because the DK Vine hotline, there is a transcription service that comes with it. So before I actually play the call or download it for our show's purposes, I can see this rough transcription, which is never accurate, right? But sometimes it provides some amusing laughs based on how wrong it is. And so for this call, you know, this call started out saying Diddy's back and he's different. Different Diddy. Diddy different. Well, the transcription thought that they were saying Titty's back and he's different. Different Titty. Diddy different.
Nailed it.
I've been accused of being a right old pervert at times because of all the sexual jokes I make. You know, and it's like, it's different having just an active sex drive and being perverted. You know, being perverted to just sitting around going, ooh. And I just like to make,
Was that Goofy?
No, that was a pervert sitting in the bushes.
What's the difference?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what Goofy gets up to. I've never seen a Goofy movie. I don't know exactly what he gets on to, like with his son in that movie, like teaching him his wily ways. But I don't know. I haven't seen Shrek. I'm not gonna pull up a Goofy movie. You can't make me.
Oh man, Hyle, we've all been on your case for you not watching Shrek. I think I would make you watch a Goofy movie before Shrek.
Honestly, I would, because at this point, Shrek is just a principle. It's just part of the bit, and
I'm not backing down.
Yeah, like I have to be steadfast in something in my life, but
right.
Yeah, I just thought that was amusing. I wanted to share it. It was just a hilarious little story, a little tale to tell.
I love it myself. But he brings up Sonic in the Sonic movie, and that's kind of what I had in mind earlier when I said they don't need to adapt something in a different way with this new Diddy. Because with Sonic in the live-action Sonic the Hedgehog movies, yeah, you can't do that mono-eye Sonic thing on this creature. It'll look horrific. They have to separate it with fur, and I think that's a very elegant way to do it. But I like now with this Diddy, they don't even need to worry about that.
Yeah. And like I said, in my headcanon, this division in his eyes has always existed. So
right.
It's one of those things where I'm just like, okay, well, this is just my own personal interpretation finally being validated.
Yeah. I always thought it was like that.
And I'm just saying, if I was right about this, the prosthetic golfing fingers, trust me.
They gotta bring him up eventually.
Eventually, he's just gonna, like, have his fingers fall off, and he's gonna be like, ooh.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. Anyway.
All right. We will get into some of the movie connotations and what this could mean for Dixie and Chunky. But again, I think it's going to keep coming up. I think it's going to be a recurring theme in our remaining calls. So let's continue to get through them with our third caller.
Hey, DK Vine, long-time listener, first-time caller. You guys have gotten me through so many of my closing shifts without losing my mind, so thank you for that. Now onto the topic of Diddy's new design. To start, I'm not extremely fond of the new Donkey Kong design, but I understand it. I get why people would like it. This Diddy design, though, good lord. When the first image came out, that was like all low quality. I was like, oh yeah, this is fine. Whatever. It's just Diddy. But then the high quality image came out, and that slim streak of skin, man, it's just like baffling that they made it look like that. It feels so antithetical from like a cartoonist standpoint, with his eyes still having the same silhouette from when they were a mono eye, but just with the little like slit. It's just weird. I just don't understand the thought process here. There are just so many ways they could have just made it look more natural, yet they chose such an awkward path. I don't know where I'm 100% going with this other than the rant, but I'm very interested with hearing what you guys got to say about probably the most controversial Diddy news ever. And I look forward to this episode. Thanks for the quality entertainment, as always, guys.
Well, thank you for the call. I'm glad we could help you get through your closing shifts. Don't know.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I don't know if it's really the right way to keep sane most times, but I appreciate it nonetheless. I don't know if this is the most controversial Diddy news. Let me search for that really quick and see what comes up here. Let's see. Hold on. I'm gonna search it in the old internet here. Controversial Diddy news. Okay. Who is the accused of sex trafficking? Oh, okay, good. That's a different guy. So
dodge that bullet.
Whew. Dodge that peanut flying out of a gun. Yeah, like we said, I don't necessarily think this will really even be that distracting once you see Diddy in motion. It's going to be barely discernible, I think, in the actual games themselves. I think the way this render looks, it's obviously going to jump out at us. It's also new, and it's just been dropped on us. It's been dropped on us outside of any context and like not seeing how his eyes are even going to be animated in this new style. And I think it's the same way with the new Donkey Kong design, where it's one thing seeing it just still. It's another thing seeing him go about his dirty DK deeds and like seeing that actually, okay, the new design might not be everybody's cup of tea, but at the end of the day, it's still the same person. It's still the same character. A lot of the same personality is there. And in fact, more of the personality that we prefer is able to come through this new design rather than him just looking like a maniac half the time because they insist on making him look a certain way.
Right.
So, like, the skin division, so many different terms. We really need to come up with a unified fandom name for this.
The skin division.
I liked Millimeter of Flesh, but
that's pretty good.
I think that this is just going to be something we'll get used to. It's just new and different, and it's so different from 30 years of how we've been trained to look and perceive Diddy Kong. So
yeah, like I said before, I do think it's good they're doing this, even if it's still kind of throwing me off a little, just because I'm so used to how it was before.
Yeah. And that's it. And it's less of a dramatic design change than Donkey Kong. And if I can get on board with Donkey Kong, then this is not going to be any problem at all.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's play our fourth call.
Okay.
Hello, this is Chocolate Milk Drinker calling in for the Diddy redesign episode of the Kongversation. I honestly think this is the best Diddy has ever looked alongside DK. I absolutely love this new design for Diddy Kong. I mean, yesterday when I saw it in like Spanish class or whatever, I was freaking out whenever I saw it. I was going crazy because of how good he looks. Especially like, they have so much emotion now. They're so like, expressive now. It looks amazing. I'm so glad to see whatever game this render was for. I know it's only like 19 days before the game releases, and then still can pull out any new info for the base game. I hope this is for Mario Kart World because there's the purple-blue lighting on the render, but oh my god, I love this new design for Diddy Kong. The best he has ever looked, honestly. Better than Retro Studios, better than Rareware. That's all I really gotta say. Bye.
Wow.
Thank you for the call, Chocolate Milk Drinker. I like this because it runs the gamut of emotions. We get, somebody who's rightfully skeptical of the change and then somebody who's rightfully all in on the change. Because I don't think there's a wrong opinion between the two. It's all down to just personal taste. And I say that, look, if anybody wants to fight me on this, I think I've proven that I'm a fan of Diddy Kong. Okay? Like, if I have to prove anything in life, I hope it's not that.
Right. You just direct them to the Kongversation.
I just direct them to my online presence for the last 25 years.
Just listen to all 13 seasons of this and then get back to me, okay?
No, you'll be crying in your pillow if you listen to all 13 seasons of this. No, I like this. And, Chocolate Milk Drinker, as mentioned, was in Spanish class, so on the younger side of our audience members. And so I like that it shows that this is just going to be the norm for people going forward. Like, future generations are just going to view this as the design standard. And look, I don't think this is the worst Diddy's ever looked. I'm happy with the way this design looks.
What would you say is the worst Diddy's looked?
Oh, God. Diddy Kong Racing DS, weirdly enough. The renders for Diddy Kong Racing DS.
With the teeth?
With the teeth.
That's an example of doing the teeth wrong, yeah.
That's an example of wrong-ass teeth. And, the irony being, like, my favorite Diddy will always be Rare. Rare's, take, the originators. But that was the last time Rare's ever done new Diddy Kong renders, and it just shows they were no longer up to the task, apparently. Woof. That's the worst Diddy's ever looked. I think this is... this is up there, though. I definitely like this Diddy. I'll tell you what, I've never liked the anime-style blinking for Diddy. I've never liked the kind of like eye emotes without using his eyelids.
It's weird because I think generally I kind of like that. I think that's a nice stylized way for certain characters. But yeah, it's weird for Diddy. It's weird for any Kong, really.
It is, but I think I like the divided eyes because we're gonna get some eyelid action in there. We're gonna It's probably hard to display Diddy blinking when he had the big conjoined Cyclops eyes.
Yeah, it's like, what, does he have just one singular eyelid?
Horrifying. So I think anything that gets away from the objective terror of that and has a more natural element behind it, and you can bring in stuff like eyelids and maybe one day eyelashes. Now, I don't want Diddy to have eyelashes, even though what would Diddy look like with guy liner? Makes you think.
I guess I hadn't thought of it before.
I'm just saying, if Diddy is in Bananza, he's got to hit up the style shop too.
That's true.
That's true. That's true. No, glad you're happy, Chocolate Milk Drinker. Thank you for the call. I hope you learned something in Spanish class, because I certainly didn't.
I didn't take Spanish, so I guess I didn't either.
I took 3 years of Spanish in high school, 2 years in college, and I don't speak a lick.
Yeah, I took 3 years of Japanese in high school, and I couldn't remember even the most basic of things.
I know C and I know no.
That's pretty good.
Yes and no. I know my way around.
You gotta start somewhere.
That's right. All right, let us play our fifth call.
Hey, Hyle. Hey, Dustin. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Traveler of the Stars. I know you guys never hear from me. Before I say anything, everyone go watch Hyle's new DKU lore tour video. It's very clear how much effort he put into it. Like, Hyle, like made a little edit for, like, every little, like, comment to, like, any, like, little phrase or saying he said. Like, go watch it. Also follow Hyle on Blue Sky. The other day he posted a thirst trap, of himself. No seriousness, Hyle's a good looking guy. I mean, I've seen him before, but, yeah, I mean, you always look great, of course. You both look great, but I was just like, man, Hyle's a good looking fella. Anyway, this is all very interesting, the Diddy stuff. I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think Swanky and or Chunky, listen, I already thought it was really weird there in the movie. No audience, that no one snuck in Swanky and Chunky. Like, do you know how many times Nintendo probably watched the movie? They were extremely hands-on. Lakitus and Boos were in the concept art. They didn't even get in the movie. And Chunky and Swanky did for, like, multiple, like, little scenes. Like, huh? And I think, like, unveiling, like, a new design for DK, obviously all the characters got slight alterations, but obviously DK is the biggest. And then Dixie with their little, like, pins in there. I don't know. I think we should start looking at the Mario movie for any little things. And I do think that, yeah, like, could Swanky run the style shop? Maybe. And maybe both of them won't be in the game, in Bananza. But, like, they didn't even have Spunky in the movie. But they had Chunky and Swanky, who are, let's be honest, pretty, like, dead characters, especially Chunky. Even Payon didn't bring them back. So I think this is just, it's all exciting. And, you know, Hyle, it's just great to hear you guys talk about a new game. Obviously, I like hearing you guys talk about, Willow Woods and Donkey Kong's Treehouse, but it's just cool to hear you talk about a new game. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the future of DK. I wonder if DK will even be in Super Mario World, the new movie title that leaked. Maybe a little bit. I don't know how much, because presumably they're going to do a movie, but, that's all the time I got. I'll talk to you guys later. Sorry, I forgot to double call. I just forgot to say anything about the redesign. I like it. I kind of wish the little divider between the eyes was brown, but it's fine. It's interesting that the pin looks more like the DK logo. Like, it doesn't have the inverted colors like the Super Nintendo World logo. That's interesting. It's interesting to got rid of the Nintendo logo. Maybe Nintendo thought it looked a little tacky, or more likely what I think, they wanted more synergy with Dixie. Dixie hasn't had a company logo in her hair for years, and I'm guessing she's going to have the DX pin, so they're like, yeah, let's make it more balanced. So that's cool. I like that. Last thing is, well, I mean, yeah, Diddy's back, but, like, I was not worried about it. And I think, guys, I think if a character is brought back, like, you gotta stop worrying that, like, they're gonna be gone. Like, remember when Dixie was in Mario Kart and some people were like, oh, she's not gonna be brought back, it's like, she was in the Lego set? I don't know, just, like, let's take a deep breath, guys. Like, I know you're scared about, like, Barnacle Bear coming back, and that I get, or like King Cagoula, which, again, isn't Smash. So, like, I don't know. Everything's fine. You know, everything's good. Okay, that's it. Goodbye.
Well, thank you for the call, Traveler of the Stars. Dustin, do you want to know why my photos are so sexy?
Yes. I was afraid to ask.
Okay. It's because I added a millimeter of flesh between my eyes.
I thought there was something different.
I always thought my eyes were too close together, and I thought if I could just get a millimeter of flesh in there, it would really, make my photos pop. And it has. Now you just have to get that tongue up to speed. Just get that tongue, get a little bit of an extra forehead in there, and yeah, I'll be Mr. GQ. But no, thank you for the call, Traveler. I am not worried. I was never worried about Diddy, for the record. I know some people out there have been spreading lies, slanderous lies, that Nintendo hates Diddy Kong because Diddy Kong was not in the immediate Bananza reveal. And I know this fandom carries a lot of baggage based on the buyout era and a lot of the falsified drama that was going on around that time. But because it was drama that was still lived, no matter how much it was built on fabrication, people still felt those emotions. They still processed those fandom wars. And so people just naturally jump to the most wild, just outrageous conclusion. And in this case, it's Diddy is a dead character because I didn't see him in the 40 seconds of footage we've seen of Bananza, or the first area of the game in this highly cultivated demo experience. I was never worried about this because of course Diddy's going nowhere, because Diddy's all over the new merchandise that features the new appearance of Donkey Kong. And it's just logic. It's just deductive reasoning yet again. And I realize a lot of people don't do this. I realize for a lot of people, the theme park meant nothing. Which, we've been pointing to the theme park. If you don't believe our reporting that Nintendo has big plans for Donkey Kong, can you at least acknowledge the fact that the theme park exists is kind of odd in and of itself?
Yeah, they don't just give theme parks to anybody.
There is no Hyrule. There is no World of Hyrule at Super Nintendo World, right?
Right.
So the fact that it was Donkey Kong Country should have spoken a lot. Now, to a lot of travelers' point, it's looking back to the movie. What can we ascertain from the Super Mario Brothers movie based on the synergy we are seeing with Donkey Kong's design and now Diddy Kong's design? Even though Diddy Kong's design is a little bit looser, it still was present in the movie. We got our first taste of the DD pin and the millimeter of flesh between the eyes.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't look exactly like how he looks in the movie, but there's enough similarities to think one influenced the other.
And I've been thinking about this a little bit. And yes, Nintendo was very hands-on with the movie, and I think everything in there concerning Donkey Kong was deliberate. Now, I'm wondering if it was when the movie was really ramping up production, that's when everybody decided, hey, maybe we redesign Donkey Kong. Maybe this is our chance. Because the theme park is what's throwing me, because there's just this weird lack of synergy now with the theme park.
Yeah, it's very weird.
It is, and the theme park has always been what I pointed to since we saw Donkey Kong's design in the movie, and I was like, they're not going to change Donkey Kong's design in the game because they've invested so much money in these two theme parks in Osaka and Orlando. How are they going to just up and change the way DK looks in the game? I was wrong. They can just do it, apparently, but
they just did.
They just did it. You know what? YOLO, as people said 15 years ago. Remember when they said YOLO?
Oh, I still say YOLO.
Oh, Dustin, you geezer. No, I think that this must have happened around whenever, like, they really were cracking into the movie and they made a decision to put Donkey Kong in it, and then one thing led to another. So I think there's a lot there in the movie that does provide a glimpse of the future. Now, of course, it's not going to be one-to-one, as we've seen with Diddy. He's not wearing a basketball jersey. A lot of his game design and shape is still present, but I think Dixie is a good call. I think Dixie, we look at Dixie, I do think when we see her again, and I think it will be sooner rather than later, I'm not saying she'll be in Donkey Kong Bananza per se, but I don't think Dixie's going to be on the sidelines for very long. I think Dixie will have the DX pin on her beret for sure. Do you think she would have the white star on her shirt?
That's hard to say. Maybe see where I land with all this is it really could just go either way. It's just like a maybe.
Dustin, this is what I admire about you.
I hate to be a fence sitter.
You never can be wrong if you never give an opinion.
That's true. That's advice I always live by. But I mean, you look at the similarities Diddy has.
Yeah.
To the movie design, and some of the things carry over, yes, but some things do not, like the jersey. So it's kind of hard to say whether Dixie's shirt will carry over as well. We don't know what elements will and won't.
I could see Dixie having a play on the stars, but of course just not being Diddy stars, but white. You know, I think
right.
You might even have the singular star, sort of like Tootie has on her shirt in Banjo-Kazooie, although in this case it's, you know, different, a little different shape, different style.
It would be something to kind of link Diddy and Dixie's designs together a little bit. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Now, I don't want Dixie just to be female
girl Diddy.
Yeah, Lady Diddy, Miss Diddy. Like, that's not what I want for Dixie, because Dixie's her own badass character. And I've never agreed with the opinion that Dixie is just the Miss Pac-Man to Diddy's Pac-Man or whatever.
Right.
Like, they're very different in personality and character. But yeah, like I could see that for sure, because especially, you know, DK has the emblem, Diddy has the stars on his shirt. Maybe Dixie feels a little unadorned as a result.
Right. Give her a little something more than just a plain pink top.
Yeah. Now, granted, she has, like, it's tied off at the bottom, so at least there's some visual distinction there, but...
Right.
Now, as far as Chunky goes, so far as Swanky goes, yeah, I
don't know.
I'm not saying I expect them in Donkey Kong Bananza, but I think given that DK is now internal at Nintendo, and they've got plans for Donkey Kong, I think they are thinking in terms of the future of what characters they might want to be using. I think Swanky and Chunky are absolutely on the table again. And I think maybe there was a deliberate choice because they haven't been used. Along with Kitty, those are the Kongs that haven't been used since the buyout. And so maybe there is just this desire to say, like, it's a shame these Kongs haven't been used since 1996 and 1999, respectively. I know Chunky made a cameo appearance in DKC3 GBA, but that barely counts. So, you know, maybe we want to reincorporate them. Maybe we have some ideas. Again, this team doing Donkey Kong Bananza, based on our own reporting, we learned that they are comprised of a lot of Donkey Kong fans. People who like Donkey Kong. And from what we've seen in the references in Donkey Kong Bananza so far, that is bearing out. I don't know if it Brothers bears out, but, you know, we have the Northern Hemisphere references. We have all of the allusions and acknowledgments to Donkey Kong 64. I think, given that this team does seem to like DKC3 and DK64, that bodes well for Swanky and Chunky.
Yeah, I I would say it's never been more possible up until now. I mean, it's always been actually possible, but this is the first time in a long time where I thought, like, I don't necessarily expect it to happen, but it could.
It could. Like, I'm so optimistic about the possibilities right now, Dustin, about what the future of all of these beloved characters that we, of course, cherish and treasure at DK Vine, that our listeners, that our readers love, but are mostly ignored by mainstream Nintendo fans because most of these characters haven't been seen in so many years. And, like, for the first time in a long time, I'm thinking, yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a good chance we'll see Swanky and Donkey Kong Bananza. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up. I kind of like that now. Nintendo really can just be like, no, this is Lanky Kong, and you're gonna fucking love him just as much as you love all these Mario characters we bring back. You stupid fools.
Their names are Trough and Scoff, and you will respect them.
Oh man, the world where Nintendo goes all in on Trough and Scoff.
I mean, can you imagine in, like, Swanky Kong's Pizza Buffet, they have a little, like, piercing parlor in the back, and there's a mini game where you've got to pierce nipples. Could you imagine that?
Oh man, I would love updated Trough and Scoff designs, and Trough just looks like a stereotypical, like, biker / piercing man. I don't know what you called him.
I think, yeah, like maybe a little bit into the SMM lifestyle, you know.
Yeah, that sort of look. Like, piercings all over, black leather vest, and he's
clamps,
like, what do you want?
Chains,
yeah,
tethers, dog collars.
He's like, just pick any of the designs up on the wall. I can tattoo anything on you.
When we pitched Swanky Kong's Pizza Buffet last year, you know, of course, at the time, it was like, ha ha ha, Swanky Kong. Even though he had already been in the movie, you know, a lot of us at the time, we just kind of wrote that off. Like, obviously, Nintendo let it happen, but we thought somebody at Illumination just, like, liked the idea of Swanky Kong and wanted to get him in there in a flaming wreckage. But now, in this post-Bananza reveal world, I'm thinking, you know, Swanky Kong's Pizza Buffet, it probably won't be called that, but it's not outside of the realm of possibility anymore.
It's never been more possible.
Just Andre says, a fishhook implanted in his back.
I like that.
This is going to sound weird, but sometimes I fantasize about that because, you know, my back gets sore. I've got like mid-back stuff now from just hunching over, you know, in front of my computer, doing Donkey Kong journalism, and also I've got upper back stuff from just carrying a heavy backpack in my school years. I never stopped by my locker. Chocolate milk drinker, I hope you use your locker, because let me tell you, if you just cram your backpack full of books and just try to go from class to class, it will have impact. When you reach your 20s, you will start feeling it. So sometimes I fantasize about getting a fish hook on my back and just imagine what it'd feel like getting pulled. Is that weird?
A little, but yeah, I think it's better than a chocolate milk drinker. You don't want to look like Orlando Donkey Kong costume DK with his big hunched back.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that, but that looks bad compared to the Universal Studios Japan costume.
Again, it's one of those things where you just have such a direct comparison, and it just looks so much better. And I really think I could live with the rest of it if it wasn't for that hunchback. It just completely takes me out of it.
It almost looks like, comparing the two costumes, the Orlando version looks like Temu Donkey Kong. Like just the like knockoff costume that they got on the cheap.
Right, like one of those figures you would find that says it has like a bunch of stock art all over it, and it has a bad paint job, and They say it's Donkey Kong, but I'm not so sure.
Like a dollar store ripoff action figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monkey King, they call him.
So Chocolate Milk Drinker is in our chat right now and says, I don't use a locker. Just Andre says he uses a B locker, but Chocolate Milk Drinker explains, my American history teacher is absolutely mental. If I were to use a locker, I would be a minute late to class. Then he gives a rant. And yes, that is the problem. That is the problem with American schools. One of the many problems, but let me do a quick rant real quick and then we'll play our last call because this is important. There's this absolute, like, almost fascist state where nobody's given the benefit of the doubt, right? Like, everybody is just viewed as a little criminal by the administration. And so the idea is, okay, you've got to go from one class to another and you have to be in your seat by the time the bell rings. And granted, like, I don't know how things operate in schools nowadays. I'm an old man at this point, but this is the way it was back, in my junior high and high school days. And it sucks because you don't have time to get from one end to the building to the other. And so, I would just cram my backpack full of books. And now I've got minor back issues. Not anything significant, but I just always want to get my back cracked. I always roll down the stairs, like slide down the stairs to crack my back, or I have people walk on my back, or I lay on a back ramp, which like I fall asleep on it sometimes to realign my spine. So I don't wind up like the Epic Universe Donkey Kong, that monstrosity.
Right, you don't want people to say, wow, why does this Hyle costume look so wrong compared to the other one?
So Chocolate Milk Drinker, I just want to say I'm sorry that we don't learn from our mistakes, because I hate to see the next generation's backs get us screwed up as millennials and Gen Z.
Some things never change, unfortunately.
But you know what? We can all walk on each other's backs when the eventual Kongversation happens. How about that? All right, let us play our final call, and then we'll discuss if we think this means Diddy Kong will be in Donkey Kong Bananza. Woo!
Hello, Kongversation. This is TJ calling to discuss this new redesign we got of Nintendo's Diddy Kong character. I'm sure you've heard of him. So, to start with all the talk that, people have finally been getting used to DK's redesign, we've had a few months to sit with it, even longer if you count the Mario movie. In my head, I kind of just assumed that the rest of the Kongs would be safe. Like, even, we saw them all get redesigned slightly in the movie, but as far as DK's redesign goes, we know that was done to harken back closer to Miyamoto's original design. So, why would they bother touching up the other Kongs? Like, what is there to harken back to? And when we saw Cranky and Bananza, that kind of confirmed it for me. It's like, oh, okay, so they touched up DK, but everybody else will stay the rare pay-on designs. So, to my surprise, when the new Diddy dropped, I dug it. I thought it was inoffensive. I didn't have any problems with it. He was still recognized as Diddy Kong, DK has more realistic feet. DK has a protruding nose. It makes sense you would go back and give those to Diddy now, so they mesh a little better when they stand next to each other. The visible teeth, I noticed all that, because it was a low-quality human on it. So I thought, okay, if you had to touch him up, this is a fine compromise. I can deal with this. Like everybody else, when the high-quality version came out the next day or a few hours later, I noticed a lot more about it. I noticed the little slit between his eyes, and suddenly, for some reason, every negative thing about that design, at least in my opinion, was just hitting me at once. When I noticed that slit in his eyes, and I don't even have the conjoined eyes anymore, that's when it started to fall apart for me. I was like, oh, why'd they have to divide his eyes? If they did, why'd they use the flesh color? Why not use the full color? Why did he have the red pin on top of his red hat? Like, why not just have the yellow letters directly on the red hat, like yellow letters directly on DK's red tie? I'm not straight up. I prefer the road design, of course. A lot of people do, for a lot of reasons. And I don't think a ton of these changes were really necessary. Like, even looking at DK, they're saying they changed them to make it more expressive. And, I don't think that was necessary. I think you could have animated the old design more expressive, but I can kind of get their mindset. I'm looking at these changes with Diddy, and I know I brought up the feet and the nose, but, like, what does changing the eye really accomplish? Like, is this going to make it more expressive? Is it just, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not super fond of it, but, yeah, I don't want to focus on the negative. The DK brand is higher than ever. There's new DK games coming out. I like that there's so much buzz. That's the good thing about this. I got cut off earlier. Sorry about that. I try not to make this a habit. But, yeah, the discourse around these redesigns, I'm in the unique position where I'm just kind of happy to see there's so much buzz around these characters in general. I'm happy that there are people who like the new designs. I've seen people say that, they didn't think much of Donkey Kong at all until they saw this new redesign where he's a lot sillier. And so I can appreciate that. I like that these redesigns are creating new fans. At the same time, when people voice their displeasure with the redesign, I kind of appreciate that too, because it's telling me you had a connection to the older design. Like you preferred Rare's take on it. Like, and I definitely can sympathize with that. And I like seeing that there are people who still, prefer Rare's take on this world. So at the end of the day, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Diddy's redesign, but I think it's a net positive because we're talking about Donkey Kong. The future of Donkey Kong is bright. And so, yeah, I think I'll end it there. So thanks for taking the call.
Well, thank you for the calls. And I think no matter how you feel about this design, be it Diddy or Donkey Kong's new design, it's like we were saying when we talked about Donkey Kong's new design in episode 1302. This obviously means good things for the character of Diddy Kong. The fact that they went through the effort, and this is way more effort than just adding hair where there was no hair before. Back in 2021, where we were just like, yes, this could mean something. And I still think it meant something. It just took a little bit longer for what it meant to actually bear fruit. And by that point, they decided, let's just change the design completely. But when we saw that they had indeed changed Donkey Kong's design in that January 16th Switch 2 teaser, my first thought was, yeah, DKEPD is coming. They wouldn't do this if they didn't have direct control of Donkey Kong. And I know that seems silly to say because Nintendo owns Donkey Kong. They always have direct control over Donkey Kong. But there was always this kind of hands-off respect for the character so long as it wasn't under the purview of EPD directly.
Right.
And when we saw that they did indeed change DK's design, I was like, yeah, they're definitely doing the new DK game. Like, all those doubts we might have had, well, we haven't heard anything in so long, maybe plans fell through. It was kind of soothed at that point. I was like, all right, it's coming. And sure enough, then April 2nd, yeah. So, seeing that they did the same for Diddy, all this talk about, is Diddy going to be in Donkey Kong Bananza? I would be gobsmacked if Diddy didn't make an appearance somewhere in Bananza. Does that mean Diddy will be playable? I don't know. Maybe not. But I can't see them not putting Diddy somewhere in their first Donkey Kong game. With this new direction, with this new era, and Diddy's obviously the second most important character in the Donkey Kong series. Maybe Miyamoto views Cranky as the second most important character, given the historical lineage, which they are keeping, they are embracing, that Cranky is the original DK. So maybe Miyamoto's like, yeah, Cranky's the second most important character, Diddy's third. But Diddy's still up there, and for most people, Diddy would be, the second in command of the Kong army. So I think, we haven't seen any of the shops. We haven't seen what's going on in Ingot Isle. Obviously, there's so many NPCs in all the worlds. If Diddy isn't in there somewhere, I will legitimately be shocked.
Agreed. Agreed.
And if he's not in Bananza, he's gonna be in the next one. He's gonna be somewhere very soon. Like, we don't have to wait long for Diddy Kong to show back up. This render should pacify any remaining fears about that. All of that clickbait shit from early April where people were trying to turn this into an issue, a wedge issue. Get bent, go to hell, drink piss. You're wrong. You're always wrong. Listen to us.
Wow.
Listen to our community, not just DK Vine, but everyone in our network of fellow sites. We know what's up with Donkey Kong and the DKU. These other people know jack shit. Don't listen to them. Diddy's safe. Diddy's here forever. This isn't the fucking buyout era. This isn't the Jungle Beat strife. This is a new golden era for Donkey Kong, and everybody's coming along for the ride. Even Swanky and Chunky, apparently.
Here's hoping. I it's so hard for me to say whether or not I think they will truly show up in Bananza, but boy, I hope so. I'd love to see Chunky show up again. I'd love to see Swanky show up again. I mean, I never even thought we'd see the Northern Cremisphere again, and there it was.
And the thing is, we've seen so little of Bananza.
Yeah.
We've barely gotten a taste yet. So the fact that the taste we have gotten, the little morsels to chomp on, to go nom 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 with our big juicy cherry tongues, the ones we've gotten are so full, so resplendent with the flavor of references of the past and appreciation of the Donkey Kong series, but never in a like tacky way. It's always like, oh, that makes sense to reference that there. That makes sense to call back to that, or it's tantalizing. What does that mean? Why is the Northern Cremisphere on these maps? Oh, what is this mystery?
It's not something that's in your face. It's not like Donkey Kong turns to the camera and says, that's like in Donkey Kong Country 3.
And he just lets out a long fart as he picks his nose.
I mean, I would clap.
Honestly,
I would enjoy it.
Honestly, I went on and on and on and on about Q-tips in the ears and how does Diddy do it now, but now that they all have more pronounced noses, we know we could get some picking action going on as well. Like, I want an idle animation of at least one Kong just going to town in their nostrils.
Right. I think it's only a matter of time. What I'm looking for, we were talking about Diddy looking a little bit more monkey-esque, a little more accurate to a monkey. What if they gave all of the Kongs just big protruding anuses?
Well, here's hoping.
Pretty good, right?
That's been the dream. That has been the dream since the Rare era. We need one Kong with a big red ass.
Yeah, I feel like we're like one redesign away from it.
We've had baboons in the series. I mean, Baboom from Tropical Freeze, everybody loves that guy. And I'm just like, okay, his gimmick is that he's a ninja and he can create the duplicates of himself. Why isn't his gimmick like bouncing around on his big red ass?
Seriously, that would do so much to endear people to him.
I think then people wouldn't have complained about Ingard not being in Tropical Freeze, personally speaking.
Yeah, they would say Retro's next game is another damn Donkey Kong game, and here's why that's a good thing. And then they post a picture of him.
Right. Samus doesn't have a big red protruding ass.
0.1 for Donkey Kong, I guess.
Yes. So, yeah, I'm feeling good about everything right now. Like, I don't know if Diddy's going to be playable. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not, but I don't think we're in this constant loop anymore of Donkey Kong getting completely reinvented with each new development team. I think that it's weird to say that too, because yeah, this is the most substantially different Donkey Kong has looked and felt since 1994, but yet all the trappings are coming along for the ride. And so it feels more like our old guy. Like, I look at this Diddy design. And I'm like, that's our guy. And he's right there with Donkey Kong, who is right there with Cranky Kong, who's talking about Rambi. And, you know, we're getting the Northern Hemisphere referenced. And this just all feels very cohesive in a way it honestly hasn't since Payon. You know, it's so cool to see. I'm so excited about what the future holds. And I think this new Diddy design, love it, hate it, or trying to get used to it, like it meant for Donkey Kong, good things are ahead. Now, I've been thinking a lot since seeing this new Diddy design about the legacy of Kev Bayless, who of course designed the modern Donkey Kong in collaboration with Shigeru Miyamoto, designed Diddy Kong, as well as other beloved characters. Now, speaking of beloved Kev Bayless characters, Killer Instinct Gold arrived on Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack this week. Now, that's not worthy of doing an entire Kongversation unto itself, or a Kongversation mini even, but that means there's only 3 N64 rare games left, not including Mickey Speedway USA. And they're all DKU. Diddy Kong Racing, Donkey Kong 64, and Conker's Bad Fur Day. But that's not what I'm here to talk about right now. I'm talking about Kev Bayless characters because I was gathering screenshots for my Killer Instinct Gold article for DK Vine because, you know, it's still newsworthy, a rare game on NSO. As we whittle those down, it can only mean we're getting closer to the ones our audience are primarily interested in. And I was looking at B. Orchid, the famous character in Killer Instinct, and obviously just full of 90s video game sex appeal tropes.
Right.
And she's mostly known for 2 very prominent assets. And I was thinking, you know, oh man, I wonder how Kev Bayless is feeling, you know, having so much of his handiwork, so much of his design work being erased or replaced with Diddy Kong. But then I thought about B. Orchid, and I said, I suppose it's only fitting that Kev Bayless's most iconic character has now been given double D's. Titty's back, and he's different. Different titty! Diddy different!
Big protruding anuses.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.